Chapter 30. Dakota Higurashi, Kagome's father. Sesshomaru and the others were traveling to find Kagome's father, who is still alive. As a matter of fact, Kagome was in shock by hearing how her father had survived the car crash. The question is, how did he end up here in the feudal era? Kagome was still in shock. After the battle of Naraku and his fellow friends, the girl named Lightning was bringing her to meet her father. Sesshomaru and the others are very much in shock. They didn't know Kagome had a father in the feudal era. Despite their thoughts, when they headed towards the path where Lightning led them, Sesshomaru got feelings for this. He thought this isn't right by meeting this man, but he won't stand in his mate's way. "Hey guys," Kagome said. "How did you guys end up defeating the Band of Seven in Kagura?" Moroku sighed at that. "Well, they got away before you guys had defeated Naraku. Besides, I saw the other demon dog who managed to help them escape." Sesshomaru widened his golden eyes. "You mean Inuyumi was there? She helped them escape?" He nodded with a sweat drop. "Yes, she did. I think Inuyumi has worked for Naraku." "Why would Inuyumi do that?" Kagome asked. "I don't know, but I think Naraku is using her to steal your baby away from you," Moroku said. Sesshomaru growled in fury. "If I ever see Inuyumi again, I will make sure she'll die by my claws." "Calm down, Sesshomaru. Maybe at this time, this is for the best," Ayame said. "Plus, she got away with it while she was hiding from us before we finally defeated Naraku," Inuyasha said, rolling his eyes. "Well, at least one of his incarnations is now free from Naraku's control, except for Kagura and Kana, who still work for Tsubaki," Kagome pointed out. Inuyasha scoffed. "If I see those two again, and even Tsubaki, I'll make sure they'll turn into ashes." "No, there's no time for this, Inuyasha. Lightning was taking us to meet my father," Kagome said, gazing at the path where Lightning was leading them. Suddenly, Kagome sensed the shards and the familiar demonic aura. She knew what was going to happen next. They saw a whirlwind coming towards them. Sesshomaru quickly got in front of Kagome, being overprotective of her and the unborn baby. The whirlwind died down, and they knew it was Koga. "Koga?" Kagome blinked surprisingly. "Hey, Kagome." Koga greeted her happily. "How's it going?" She was very surprised that he didn't call her my woman. "Fine, but now's not the time," she said. "Yeah, why don't you go bother someone else, Koga?" Inuyasha snarked. "Shut up, mutt!" Koga snapped as he kicked him in the stomach that made Inuyasha grunt in pain. "So what are you all doing?" "We finally defeated Naraku, so we have to go meet Kagome's father, who is still alive," Shippo said. Koga blinked. "Kagome's father?" They nodded. "Wasn't her father supposed to be dead?" Koga asked. "Of course not, idiot! Kagome told us everything. Lightning was taking us to meet her dad. By the way, you weren't there hearing the story about what happened to Higurashi," Inuyasha shouted. Koga growled at him. He had enough with Inuyasha's attitude. He couldn't help but face him. "Shut up, mutt! I overheard what happened." "Then how the hell do you know?" Inuyasha argued. "Kagome told me everything." Koga smirked as he crossed his arms against his chest. Kagome sighed in embarrassment, rubbing her face. "No, she didn't! She never told you everything, wolf boy!" Inuyasha shouted. "Oh yeah? Then who's gonna believe me, mutt?" Koga shouted. "Nobody!" "Boys, stop it!" It was Ayame who interrupted their argument. Inuyasha and Koga spun their head and saw her walking towards them with a frown. Koga was in shock at seeing the white wolf who showed up with the groups. He didn't know she was with them. "Ayame? Why are you here?" Koga asked. "Because Kagome is my best friend since we got along, and she told me everything about what happened to her father. I was the one who told you for 2 years ago. When you overheard our conversations, then I explained it to you," Ayame said. Koga was confused. "So Kagome didn't tell me?" She shook her head. "Nope, just me." "No, wait a minute, Ayame. I thought you and Kagome are both enemies," Koga pointed it out. "Not anymore, Koga. Since you broke a promise to marry me, I decided to be with Inuyasha," Ayame said, leaning close to Inuyasha, who was blushing. Koga widened his eyes. "What? So you chose Inuyasha because you..." Ayame smiled, blushing softly. Yes, Koga. Yes, I do. It's because I fell in love with Inuyasha. And I love him with all my heart. Inuyasha smiled, blushing. He leaned close to her, embracing her softly. He couldn't help but kiss her on a cheek that made Ayame giggle. Kagome, Sesshomaru, and the others are very happy for them. Kagome was glad Inuyasha found someone that he loved. Koga's sweat dropped with an expressive look. Mutt, I can't believe you fell in love with my ex-fiancé. Inuyasha smirked. Yep, sure am, wolf boy. Lightning began to interrupt them, clearing her throat. Forgive me for interrupting everyone, but shall we head over to meet Kagome's father? Everyone nodded, and so did Kagome. Yes. What the hell? I'm in, Koga said. Wait, Lightning interrupted again. Koga, you have 2 shards, right? Koga glanced down at his 2 ankles that shined brightly. He glanced back at the young woman. Yeah? Why? Because we need them to complete the Shikon jewel, Koga. We need your 2 jewel shards from your ankles to make the jewel whole again, Lightning said. Koga sighed at that. All right, here you go, he said as he took the 2 shards out of his ankles, then passed them to Lightning. When she has the shards, she gave them to Kagome, then placed them in the jar. Lightning smiled. Thank you. Aren't you going to merge the jewel shards? Sesshomaru asked. Kagome softened her icy blue eyes, staring at them. I will. But I want to see my father and then my family as well. Why? Ayame asked. Because I don't know if I'll be sent back to my time or stay in the feudal era with Sesshomaru after the jewel disappears, Kagome said. I hope not, Kagome, because I don't want to lose you and the baby, Sesshomaru said. Koga widened his eyes by overhearing him say the word baby. What? You and Kagome are gonna have a baby? Sesshomaru and Kagome nodded in response with sweat drops. Inuyasha couldn't help but laugh, but he tried to stay quiet. Koga could hear him laughing. What are you laughing at, mutt? Koga shouted. You didn't know Kagome was having a baby? Inuyasha mocked him. Shut up, mutt! Koga shouted, facing him again. They then started to fight, and everyone sighed in disbelief with sweat drops. Shall we move on? Lightning asked. Kagome nodded. Yes, please. They then passed the 2 fighting dogs and walked into the different paths. The others headed their way to meet Kagome's father. Kagome knew it was her second chance to meet him again, but she felt a bit nervous about meeting him. She wondered what her father looked like, as it's been quite a long time since she last saw him. She remembered she last saw her father as a young man in his mid-30s. She felt her stomach twisted, but it wasn't her baby. Lightning noticed she was a bit nervous about meeting her father. Kagome, it's all right. Your father Dakota will be happy to see you, Lightning said with a kind smile. Kagome glanced down at the ground. I want to meet my dad again and talk to him, but I'm scared of the answer. What kind of answer, Kagome? Kohaku asked curiously. Well, I'm scared of speaking to him, which means I wasn't looking forward, Kagome murmured. Relax, Kagome. We're here for you, and you need not to be afraid. Your father will definitely be happy to see you, Moroku said kindly. Yeah, and he noticed you're still alive, Shippo said. Kagome smiled at everyone. Thank you all. Dad? When they finally arrived at the Higurashi shrine, they all approached the man who wore his black kimono. His hair is black and his eyes are green. Kagome knew her father looked way different than the other men. She couldn't help but cry. Her father looked handsome. She couldn't wait to tell her family about this. Her father blinked in shock. Kagome? Daddy, you're alive! Kagome cried out, running towards him, then pulled him into a hug. Her father could feel her trembling a bit and noticed she started to cry. He then wrapped his arms around her upper back. Dakota couldn't believe he was with his daughter again. Kagome, my sweet girl, I missed you, Dakota cried out in joy. Dad, tell me, why did you leave us? What was wrong with us? You left me all alone with Mom and Sota. How could you fake your death like that? Kagome asked as she sat beside him. Everyone is sitting on the pillow, watching over Kagome and her father who faked his death. He sighed deeply. Oh, Kagome. There's something I should tell you. The truth. Then what is it, Dad? What happened to you? Kagome asked. Your grandmother, Hana, was born in the feudal era, Dakota explained to his daughter. Kagome widened her eyes in shock. And so are her friends and even Sesshomaru, he continued. Your grandmother is a sorcerer. She was sent into the modern era until she met your grandfather. They both loved each other, and they ended up having me. I was born in your time instead of the feudal era. I was a sorcerer too. When I grew into a young man, I met your mother Harumi when we were at college. Harumi and I ended up falling in love with each other until you were born. 5 years later, when Harumi was pregnant with your brother, the evil half-demon spider Naraku came after me when I was sent into the feudal era. He knocked me out unconscious and set after to kill me, but I survived. I decided to fake my death so Naraku and the others wouldn't think I'm still alive. Kagome, I would never leave you and your family behind. I'm sorry that I didn't come back home. They couldn't believe that Naraku had chased him down and tried to kill him. Kagome was furious with Naraku, but she was glad that Naraku was dead and Dakota was still alive. Harumi, Sota, and Grandpa will be very happy to see him again. I understand, Dad. I forgive you, Kagome said as she embraced him. We're glad that bastard Naraku is dead. Gladly, you'll be able to go back to Kagome's time, Inuyasha said, crossing his arms. But Inuyasha, we can't do that. Kagome needed to wish for the jewel to disappear forever right after she needed to see her family, Ayame said. Dakota blinked. The Shikon jewel? You mean all of you completed it? They nodded. Yes, we did, Lord Dakota, Moroku said with a kind smile. And Kagome will send you back to see your family again, Sango said. Besides, whatever you decide, we won't force you. Dakota chuckled. Thank you, Demon Slayer. Speaking of which, how did you all complete the jewel? Kagome smiled. Well, it's a long story, Dad, but you'll never believe this. She began to explain to him about how she first arrived in the feudal era around her 15th birthday, meeting Inuyasha and all the others, searching for the jewel shards, getting attacked by Inuyasha who was being enchanted by Kikyo, traveling with Sesshomaru, Jokin, and Rin, rescuing Rin from the monks, Kagome and Sesshomaru being together, getting kidnapped by the demon dog Drago, being rescued by Sesshomaru, leaving Sesshomaru and the others after being separated, reuniting with her friends, returning to the era, seeing Sesshomaru again, sending Kikyo back to the dead, becoming pregnant with Sesshomaru's child, getting married in the cherry blossoms, and defeating Naraku. Also, Ayame's broken engagement to Koga and confessing her love to Inuyasha. Wow, Kagome. I didn't know you and Sesshomaru were having a baby. I can't wait to meet it, Dakota exclaimed excitedly. Kagome smiled with joy. I'm glad you're happy, Dad. Is your baby going to be a half-demon like Inuyasha? Dakota asked. Kagome nodded. Yep. Inuyasha narrowed his golden eyes. I beg your pardon. Inuyasha, sit. Kagome whispered as Inuyasha slammed his face onto the ground. What the hell, Kagome? Inuyasha shouted as he stood up. What does that have to do with anything, Dad? Dakota sighed with a smile. Well, it's not like I'm in shock of meeting a half-breed child. I was happy that you and Sesshomaru have eternal happiness. Kagome smiled. Thank you so much, Dad. Kagome, Sango interrupted. Do you plan to get rid of the jewel? Unfortunately, no, not yet. I have to take Dad back to my time to meet Sota, Grandpa, and Mom. They'll be happy to see him again, Kagome said. Why, sweetheart? Dakota asked curiously. Because I don't know what will happen when I get rid of the jewel. I might be sent back to my time, or stay in the feudal era. So, Dad and I are going to go see our family, Kagome said. I see, Dakota said. It made sense to Dakota. He knew he hadn't seen his family for a few years since Kagome had first arrived in the feudal era since her 15th birthday. He wondered how Harumi, Sota, and his father are doing, maybe missing him. Sota never really met his father before, but Dakota wanted to meet his son again. Kagome would want to see them before it's all over. I'll escort you and Kota to the well, Kagome, Lightning said as she stood up. Sesshomaru stood up as well. I'll go with them as well. I'll make sure Kagome and the baby are alright. Thank you, Sesshomaru and Lightning, Kagome said before they left to the Higurashi shrine. Dakota looked over his shoulder at the pink-haired woman. Lightning, I want to thank you for bringing my daughter here. I want to make sure she's alright. It would be an honor, Dakota, Lightning said, bowing her head down towards Dakota. Chapter 31. Moments with Friends and Family. As for Koga, who watched over them, he couldn't help but exhale deeply. He smiled at that. He was glad Ayame had found someone else. She loved Inuyasha. He headed back to his pack. It had been 2 weeks since Kagome and Dakota went to visit their family. The festival has been started, and everyone is celebrating it. Sesshomaru walked in the street, feeling a bit alone. He watched families and couples checking out the stalls that held games, food, and different kinds of merchandise. Humans, as noisy as ever, Sesshomaru thought as he continued walking through the street. Daddy! It was Rin who called out his name. Sesshomaru spun around and saw Rin was running towards him with an excited look on her face. Daddy, guess what? Moroku and Sangha are getting married! Sesshomaru smiled softly. Really? Right after Naraku was defeated? Yeah, and do you know why? Sangha's having a baby! Rin exclaimed excitedly. That's great news, Rin. I hope the Demon Slayer and Monk will live together as a family, Sesshomaru said with a smile, walking beside his adoptive daughter. I can't wait to become a healer, and I also can't wait to deliver Sangha's baby. It'll take 9 months until the baby will arrive. He chuckled. I'm happy for my little Rin. I'm sure you'll be the best healer. Rin blushed a bit, smiling. Thank you, Daddy. When they passed through the villagers, they saw Inuyasha and Ayame are walking together holding hands. Sesshomaru knew they were officially together. He was happy for Inuyasha. Inuyasha noticed Sesshomaru and Rin are here. He couldn't help but smile. Hey, Sesshomaru! He greeted his older half-brother, walking towards him. You're looking well today. Have you been thinking of Kagome? He smiled as he nodded his head. Yes, I miss her and the baby. I've been missing her and the baby for 2 weeks now. I don't know if Kota will stay in the feudal era. I'm sure Kota will spend time with his family before Kagome will return to our time, Inuyasha said. I guess so. But I was afraid to lose her again. I hope that she won't stay stuck in her own time, Sesshomaru muttered sadly. Inuyasha patted his shoulder, cheering him up. Don't worry, Sesshomaru. Kagome will be fine. She'll be back. After the brotherly conversations, Sesshomaru then went back to the street with Rin, and Inuyasha went back to Ayame. Sesshomaru wished that Kagome could come to the festival. The month had quickly gone by for Kagome and Dakota. Today was the last day of Kagome's visit. Kota had decided on staying in the modern era with their family. She was glad. Her parents, her brother, and her grandfather were very emotional about her departure. But the jewel had to disappear from the world. Goodbye, Mom and Dad, Kagome said as she hugged Harumi and Dakota. Goodbye, Sota. She hugged her brother. Goodbye, Grandpa. She hugged her grandfather. We'll miss you, Kagome, and don't ever forget about us, Dakota said. I won't, Dad. I promise, Kagome said. I wish you and Sesshomaru eternal happiness. Live together forever with the baby, Harumi said. Farewell, Kagome, Grandpa said. I'll miss you, sis, Sota said. Thank you all forever, Kagome said with eyes closed and a smile as her icy blue eyes filled with tears. Then she jumped into the well where she was surrounded by the blue light for the last time. Sesshomaru waited for Kagome to return. He could smell the scent from the Bone Eater's well. He stood there and stared down. He promised Kagome and the baby that he would give them their eternal happiness. He saw her reaching for the light, but he took her hand and helped her climb up the wall. He could smell the scent of sadness. Kagome, do you miss them? Sesshomaru asked. She nodded. Yes, very much. I had to say goodbye to my family. Dad decided to stay with them forever. I didn't think it would be so hard. Sesshomaru embraced her, rubbing her back. Kagome couldn't help but cry. She missed her family, but she needed to get rid of the jewel. She wanted to be with her husband and raise their child together in the Edo village. Even if you can no longer see them, Kagome, they'll always be close to your heart. Never forget that, Sesshomaru said. She nodded in response. Kagome took a breath, not crying anymore. She began to smile towards him. Well, let's get rid of the jewel, shall we? Sesshomaru nodded as they headed back to the village. He didn't want to hurry Kagome. He knew she needed a little time to grasp the reality that she'll never see Kota and her family again. When they arrived in the Edo village, everyone is glad Kagome was back. Rin explained to Kagome that everyone is happy during the festival. She also explained that Moroku and Sango got married and are having a baby. Kagome was happy for them. Right now, Kagome took the small bottom of the jewel shards underneath her clothes and placed all the pieces into the palm of her hand. She clasped her hands together and used her spiritual power ki to merge the pieces. Her hands glowed a pink light for a moment, and then it disappeared. She let out her palms to complete the Shikon Jewel of 4 souls. She clasped her hands once more and closed her eyes. I wish for the jewel to disappear forever, Kagome said. Then, a small chime of a bell ringed with filled of echoes around them, and the jewel faded from the world. It was now gone forever. After everything they've been through, after everything, Kagome had traveled through time between the feudal era and in the modern era. All the battles, the hardship, the pain, the bloodshed they faced, and the bonds they created, the object that had caused so much misfortune, was finally gone. The jewel is finally gone, Ayame exclaimed happily. It's finally over. After everything we've been through, it was a great epic adventure, Inuyasha said, scooting close to his mate. It sure is, Inuyasha. Moroku smiled as he leaned close to his pregnant wife Sango. I'm glad it's finally gone, Sesshomaru said with a soft smile. Me too, Kagome breathed out. So, does it mean Mama is staying here forever? Shippo asked joyfully. Sesshomaru looked at the young fox. He nodded. Yes, Shippo. Kagome is staying here forever and will be a part of our family. Rin and Shippo exclaiming happily. The 2 kids ran towards the young priestess and hugged her tightly. Everyone is so happy that Kagome was staying in the feudal era forever. They were all happy the jewel is finally gone. They can now live their lives peacefully. Eventually, those that were used in Naraku's scheme are now finally free. Everyone is now living their happy lives, together and forever. Chapter 32. The happy ending for all of us. It's been 3 years since the end of Naraku and the disappearance of the Shikon Jewel of 4 Souls. The new Edo village was built in a peaceful part of happiness. Kagome got to admit that this place was called home. If you all want to know how they were doing, well, here's the thing I want to explain to you. Shippo went to train with some of the demon foxes to learn more about fox training, but he always makes time to visit his parents, Sesshomaru and Kagome. Also, Moroku and Sango's family as well. Sometimes he would also visit Inuyasha and Ayame and join Kohaku in Kidada's journey. Kohaku traveled with Kilala, slaying demons for those in need. Totosai gave him a new weapon, although he says it's heavier than his old one. Kohaku was thankful regardless. The old swordsman then asked Kohaku if he still visits his sister Sango from time to time. With a smile, Kohaku laughs, saying, No, their home is kind of crowded. Sango and Moroku had gotten married, and they had 2 beautiful twin daughters named Haruka and Sakura. 3 years later, they had a son named Hisui. Sango certainly kept her promise to her husband Moroku about bearing his children. Kaede took on the duty of training Rin to become a healer in the Edo village, to get her reaccustomed to living with Sesshomaru and Kagome. She assisted Kaede with everyday tasks, as well as with special occasions, such as the birth of Hisui, whom she helped clean after his birth. Sesshomaru normally brought gifts for her new kimono outfit. As for Isabo, she was able to convince the other Lord Demons that Inukimi was ruling in the Western Land. Inukimi retired and ordered Isabo to take her place as a ruler. Isabo gladly accepted it. Isabo ordered the guards to find Inuyumi, Tsubaki, and the Band of 7. she promised herself that she will teach Inuyumi a lesson. As for her children, Kazuki and Suki are always visiting the Edo village to see Sesshomaru and Kagome. Surely, they wanted to see Rin and Shippo as well. Certainly, Inuyasha was mated to Ayame. They became Sesshomaru and Kagome's most trusted family. Inuyasha and Ayame traveled together fighting demons across the country. When they both mated, Ayame had given birth to a baby boy named Makoto. He was a full-fledged demon wolf because his blood was different from Inuyasha's. Inuyasha vowed to be very strong like his father. Lastly, after what Sesshomaru and Kagome had been through together, it was a great thing. After they mated and had a baby, Kagome had given birth to their beautiful daughter named Ayane. Their daughter has no dog ears like Inuyasha's. She was like a human being, but a half-demon dog. Ayame's hair is black raven, with tinted icy blue eyes like her mother Kagome's. Sesshomaru and Kagome made their promise to travel toward tomorrow with Ayane and their whole family. As time flew by, the family started to grow even bigger. The end. This was a really, really cute story, you guys. I really enjoyed it. Shoutouts to Heaven of Nirvana. She did a really solid job on this story. I'm gonna say a critique though. Please work on your grammar and spelling. At times, it was very hard to read what you were saying, and I had to reiterate a lot of my phasing and my work. You did a great job writing it though. I really enjoyed it. You're a very good writer if you're listening to this. But yeah, I really enjoyed this series. This was really solid. I definitely love Sesshomaru and Kagome fanfics. If you guys have any Sesshomaru and Kagura fanfics, I would love to read those. You guys can go ahead and leave those in the comment section below if you have them. I know that there are going to be a couple of Inuyasha fans out there. I know my channel isn't like, you know, all dedicated to Inuyasha stuff. You know, we're more of like, it's more like a Naruto based thing. But regardless, if you are an Inuyasha fan, I'm definitely going to be doing more Inuyasha readings because I love doing them. But yeah, leave me some of your guys' fanfics in the comment section below. I definitely would love to go read them. But anyways, you guys, if you guys enjoyed the series, you know, please leave a like, subscribe, do all that other really cool stuff for the YouTube algorithm. You guys are awesome. Thanks so much for listening. And with that said, I'll see you guys with another fanfic really soon.